This is World Now. Thank you for staying with us. Now to our update on the Russia-Ukraine war. Russia's Federal Security Service has said the accreditation of 6 British diplomats had been withdrawn for suspected espionage and for threatening Russia's security. Russian President Vladimir Putin warns that the West would be directly fighting with Russia if it allowed Ukraine to strike Russian territory with Western-made long-range missiles, a move he said would alter the nature of the conflict. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and United States President Joe Biden are meeting in Washington, D.C. and are expected to discuss whether to let Ukraine use Western-supplied long-range missiles against Russia. We have a report.
Russia has revoked the accreditation of 6 British diplomats, accusing them of spying. The UK Foreign Office says the accusation is completely baseless. Russian President Vladimir Putin has also warned NATO alliance leaders that a move to lift restrictions on Ukraine's use of longer-range missiles to strike deep into his country will be considered an act of war. Putin's comments come as US and NATO allied partners appear increasingly open to the possibility of allowing Ukrainian forces use Western-provided weapon systems to strike at Russian military targets. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who is meeting President Joe Biden in Washington today, brushed aside the warning, saying Ukraine had the right to defend itself. And during a recent visit to Kiev, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken offered the strongest suggestion yet. The White House was considering lifting restrictions in line with a broader strategic shift among NATO partners. Although the U.S. has adjusted its policy to allow limited cross-border strikes into Russia using U.S.-provided weapons, U.S. President Joe Biden is yet to approve the use of longer-range systems. Biden is facing pressure at home from lawmakers on both sides of the aisle to ease the restrictions as Ukraine struggles to consolidate battlefield advances and risk being pinned back by Russian forces.
Joining us live from London to discuss this continuing tension between both nations is global affairs analyst Benga Fade. Good to have you join us on World Now. It does appear Vladimir Putin has drawn the red line in this war. What is the implication of this?
Yeah, good afternoon. Sorry. Well, with the way we have it right now, I think it's a bit more saber-rattling than what we might think it is. Really, I don't think it could escalate any lot more than it is. So, of course, this is, and the timing is actually perfect as well, with Russia telling the United Kingdom and the United States that if they allow Ukraine to use their weapons to hit targets inside Russia, of course, it could escalate the war. But I don't think it could escalate any more than it is. But of course, it's going to be a lose-lose for both sides, because considering the grounds that Russia is making, I think Russia is already struggling. If you look at when the war started, I think the average age of soldiers dying in Russia was about 23, 24. But now the average age is 38, which means Russia is actually drawing a lot more into its reserves. And of course, if there's going to be any escalation at all, Russia is not just, United Kingdom is not just going to be able to go it alone. It will be the entire NATO force. So I think at the moment, Ukraine has been allowed to use these weapons manufactured in United Kingdom and France. I think the United States has actually said no at the moment. But what they said also, United Kingdom and France, what they said, there's a caveat, and the caveat is you can hit targets, but the target should be assets within Ukraine. In other words, where you can defend yourself. So yes, they can allow it, but I think Ukraine on one side has actually been gaining ground. Russia's actually tried to gain a little bit back, but they are struggling. So overall, I think it boils down on Ukraine's side, and especially Crimea, which actually has been occupied by Russia since 2014. Ukraine is probably trying to take it back as well. But and of course, if they have these added advantages, it will help Ukraine a lot more. So I think right now, Russia. If you think about it as well, Russia and United Kingdom, they've always been at odds with each other. Long before the war started, if you remember, there was a a Russian spy who was granted asylum in the United Kingdom and was poisoned in the UK. So that's always been at odds. They've always been at odds with each other anyway for a long time. But I don't see anything happening with the way the way the war is going. But like I said, unfortunately, but either ways, I think that there's a little bit of play right here. What the Russian intelligence, and of course the British intelligence is saying is that with Ukraine starting with this conversation is probably a way to get Russia on the table and tell them, do you know what, maybe we might have to put this war to an end.
Well, that's the big thing. And over time, Ukraine has, their main request has been to be able to use these long-range missiles on Russian soil. How do you see the West at this point respond to that, considering that indirectly Russia is warning that if these missiles are used on our soil, it means that the NATO countries have indirectly brought themselves into the war, and so Russia could be free to do whatever to defend itself?
Admittedly so. Yes, you're right. You're right. This is the conversation again with United States, cleverly, coining the word, saying, you know what, without permission, you can use some of these weapons, but you're not allowed to hit. In fact, United States just blanket said, no, you're allowed to use our weapons, but you're not allowed to use it outside. And if you think about what United States and United Kingdom and France are saying, they're more or less saying the same thing. United Kingdom, France saying you can use it, but just make sure you're using it to defend yourself in your territory. So United States totally saying don't use it at all. US and France, or should I say the strong, powerful European countries saying you can use it within your country, just to make sure you only hit your targets alone. So how does it turn this war? I think one thing you've got to look at is the fact that there's been a bias right here, because even though some of this is not actually out there in the open, but there is constant communication with the media, with each other, because what you've got to understand is now the Russia is actually getting some of these long-range missiles, which is extremely powerful. They're getting them from Iran, they're getting them from North Korea. So what Ukraine is saying on one hand is, why are you able to use foreign-based weapons, but we're not allowed to in your case? And this is what Ukraine is desperately been asking for. So, like I said again, I think in another way, it's a way to turn the tide and just get this war to come to an end. I don't see this war escalating any more than it has been. And of course, we can say this repercussion is actually not being felt outside. I think in terms of the markets or etc., nothing's actually feeling, nothing's actually changing things, and we can't see any reverberations out there.
All right.
But I believe it's probably just going to get Russia to come to the table.
But while there might not be an escalation, the war is actually still on ground. Almost on a daily basis, we're hearing about people being killed, about drones flying all around. And it's 5 months to the 3rd anniversary of this war. When is it likely to end?
I mean, how long is this piece of string? That when is what you and I do not know. So sometimes you tend to you initiate this this escalation conversation as a way to kind of bring it to an end. Really, what we got to understand is that, and this is what the foreign the key experts and the ministers have been saying, that Russia is in control of the escalation ladder. Russia can always hit a lot more harder, while Ukraine hits a building, for example. Russia hits an entire city. In terms of Russia hits an entire city. Ukraine hits a fuel depot, for example, while Russia could just hit the entire power generation and collapse it. So what we don't know. I really do not. I mean, November is the United States election. I think November is too early, too close to call. For this to end. I don't think this is what Biden wants carrying on. But you've got to understand. I think one thing we've got to understand is, United Kingdom, which is the head of NATO, really, they are increasingly spending about 35% of the GDP on this, but now they're going as high as 40% of the GDP on this war. But at the end of the day, again, it all boils down to Russia. Russia is going to be the one to call an end to this war.
Global Affairs Analyst Gbenga Onifade, thank you for talking to us on World Now.